Okay, perfect. It's recording now. So yeah, I'll just kick off with a quick introduction and we'll just crack on with the questions if that's all right. Have you got any questions before we start?
No. Let's start.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to introduce Pinny today. Pinny Resnick's a seasoned technology leader with an extensive experience in the software industry. He's the CEO and co-founder of Rethink, who are experts in cloud native and AI platform engineering. He's also the author of O'Reilly's Cloud Native Transformation and is currently writing a book about AI native transformation. And that is the topic of today's talk. So hi, Pinny.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
Is there anything else? Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself anymore, or was that a good enough job?
It's great. I think the last 10 years I'm in the cloud native space and moving into AI native as everyone else, trying to redefine what it actually means to be AI native or building applications natively supporting AI. It's a very interesting transition. So I'm really curious where it will take us and the entire industry.
Excellent. Well, yeah, just to give you a bit of insight about my audience. So most of my viewers have an AI background. We do lots of talks and webinars on AI and machine learning and data science and things like that. So I think one of the things that I would like to dig into today, because we don't really get much coverage of it, is the transformational, the innovation that is required in order to do AI projects in the first place. So maybe if I could start off with a really general question about what is transformation and what does it mean to an organization?
I think this is a very important question that a lot of people don't fully understand, because most people, when they see new technologies like cloud native at the time and AI now, they consider it as just technological change. We'll just take a few tools, we'll install them, and then we have a chatbot that replaces people, or AI assistant that writes code for people. I think what's important to understand is that there is organizations, they operate in a certain way. There is technological base, there are processes, there is organizational culture, there's hierarchy or decentralized system of management. There is a lot of internal structure in every company. What happens once in a while, and this is not very often, is when the technology is driving organizational change. This is due to Conway's law. So if we look into original, like I started my career when waterfall was the strongest. The main point was, technologically speaking, there was a monolithic, the applications were monolithic. It was layered architecture, which required very strong hierarchical management structure. Everything was aligned, right? And that required very long delivery process with a lot of planning, because it was all or nothing delivery to the customer, because we would send a CD-ROM to a customer with everything on it, and we would do it once a year or maybe twice a year. That required a lot of planning, a lot of preparation. So the thing that we love to hate these days, which is monoliths and waterfall, they were actually perfect for that time when we were sending CD-ROMs. What happened with cloud native was that we started to introduce internet and spread across sort of more horizontal scaling, and not introduced microservices and different way of managing teams like team topologies. And today we're seeing similar transition from cloud native to AI native, whatever it means. But the current or future architecture defined by AI native will likely also change the organizational structure and internal processes. And that leads to transformation. But that's the definition of transformation, is when organizational change happening due to architectural change because of Conway's law. Now, if you don't adjust the organization to the architecture, then you have a broken company, right? Which we see very often when we move to cloud native. We see that organization doesn't change and stuck in the past and sort of struggling to to adjust their team structure towards team topologies or similar organizational structure. So I would say transformational change is when technology leads to organizational change. And that means that all organizational structures need to be rebuilt. And it's quite a difficult process because you cannot use the same organizational structure to create a new one, right? So that's sort of where the transformation really starts.
So where does AI fit into this picture then? Do you think that AI and ML and all of its related technologies are one of these drivers that could affect organizational structures?
I definitely think this way. And the reason I think this way is because currently the most common way of building software is cloud native, meaning microservices with team topologies. And the main boundary that we are facing in microservices is human capability of understanding the systems. So every human can understand, let's say, on average, about 150 things, the famous Dunbar number, right? So we can run 150 or 200 microservices. In a bigger team, maybe few hundred more. And also, although we have a lot of automation, we still need to fully understand that. I think what's potentially going to happen with AI is the automation and automation driven by AI will remove this limit. So we will be able to run many more microservices, many more components, make them smaller, make them more automated, which potentially will change the way we run teams. So the team topologies will unlikely be a good fit for AI native teams. Now, I don't have a clear insight into how the new teams will look like, but because we are relying more and more on AI, and we are relying on basically asking AI or prompting AI to give us the answers, it's less about actually doing the work of coding and building things, but it's more about planning and asking the questions. So that very likely will change the way the teams are structured, and that will lead to transformational change.
Right. So you're saying that it's actually generative AI that has the highest potential to impact the organizational structures.
I think potentially yes, but I don't see generative AI as the only. It's just one component. That's the one component that connects everything together. That's I don't really mean like ChatGPT asking a single query and then getting all the answers, and then we don't need any teams. No, we still will have likely quite a lot of software developers and other people that are actually building software. And there will be a lot of agents and services and quite complex IT systems, probably likely very, very much more complex than what we have right now. I think what I mean with Gen AI is that there is this capability of asking a question in human language and relying on some external system to do the work and come back and say it's finished and here is the result.
Yeah.
Right. And the humans in the chain, they will probably be more like guiding this process. So ideating, so creating the direction or guiding the AI systems, making sure that they're doing ethical things and they're actually going in the right direction. But it doesn't mean a single query to ChatGPT with a full answer and then, all the problems are solved.
Sure. And I think I can even paint a bigger picture where even in sort of traditional ML approaches, I do a lot of work with companies with MLOps related architectures to help scale up their data science team effectively. And a lot of these companies are they still have an organizational structure where the data science team is a single centralized team, and then they have various engineering teams to do the real work, quote. And so actually there's very much still a dev and ops kind of barrier between these two teams, and it's the same pattern that happened with the cloud native transformation as well. So I think it does apply to more traditional machine learning techniques as well.
And I'm really saying that, so there was this DevOps principle that the idea was that Dev and Ops, we need to remove the wall of confusion and, and merge them together and create a new DevOps team. It was great to break the boundaries, but we created new boundaries later on with a platform team and stream-aligned teams according to team topologies methodology. But it's not that much different from what's probably going to happen with AI. So we want to break these boundaries to a certain extent to allow developers to do infrastructure by talking to some sort of Gen AI systems, ML ops, whatever it's going to be. But that will break the boundary between developers being able to do larger scale infrastructure projects, but it will likely create different specialized teams, which I don't exactly know how they will look like. But the boundary will remain. Because at the end, the boundaries are needed so we can create economy of scale, right? So the teams that are specializing in ML or AI or infrastructure, that's not going to go away.
Yeah, understood. So if you imagine that someone has now come to the conclusion that maybe they've read something or they've seen something and they have a strong opinion that AI can help their business in some way. How do they go about prioritizing what to do first? Like, do you think that they need to make organizational changes first, or do you sort of do a project-based approach? Like, how would you go about it?
I think first, what you shouldn't do, right? So there's common mistakes are going all in. Like the board says we need to go to AI, tells the CTO, go and buy a tool, and we're fully transitioning to AI. Very similar to Kubernetes at the time, right? So you go and buy OpenShift or some sort of other platform. Once you do, then we are now AI company. That's very unlikely to work. Also, waiting until a full platform is available is also not the best solution, because the competition will catch up and it will likely be very late to get in. The best way, and this is sort of the only reasonable way, is to start small and expand, right? So in the early stages, it's really not about abandoning old products and old ways of doing things, but it's about acquiring knowledge and expertise and experience with new technologies to understand what are the use cases. Is there a business case to adopt those technologies? And this is best done in small POC projects. So the best thing to do, and this is what we're talking about in the book, we call it pioneering, sort of creating a small skunk work style team on the side that would go and research these new technologies. So they will gain knowledge, experience, they will understand the landscape, and they will create a business case that justifies the transition. And once you do that, then you start preparing the MVP, which is the minimum viable product with a new product, a new set of technologies that actually does something meaningful. And from there, you start scaling and gradually transition to the new technologies. And that's the structure of real transformation. And as you do that, you don't just transition the technology piece by piece, but you also create separate new teams that are detached from older teams, and they create new culture, new organizational processes, new delivery processes. And that's how you also gradually transition the organization towards the new structure.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. So are there any dependencies? Are there any requirements that you need in order to do that?
You really need to have a well-functioning existing systems. So the problem is that most of the companies that are looking into AI, they at some point in the last 5 or 10 years, they moved from waterfall to cloud native. Typically enterprises, right? There are of course startups that they were born cloud native, but most companies went from waterfall to cloud native. But most of them somehow went halfway. So they still have some sort of like agile semi-cloud native environment with semi-functioning platform, with a shadow IT, with all kind of problems that are not resolved yet. So it's not really fully functional. This is where most of the effort is going, and that's where the executives are feeling like we invested all this time and effort and money in this cloud native tooling, and it doesn't help us. It only slows us down. As long as this situation exists, it will likely prevent you from doing proper transformation towards AI. It really is about finishing, like really getting to the point that you are sort of like Google, right? It's fully functional. You have a proper platform, self-service, well-managed microservices and team topology. So everything is mature, stable, and consistent. And that is sort of a prerequisite to a successful transition to the next wave of innovation.
Okay. I think that's probably that's a bit of a challenge. So I guess the question is like how do you know when you're ready then? How do you know when you're done enough to kind of take the next step?
They're actually quite good numbers to go by, like DORA metrics or SRE practices. I mean, of course, you can move from so not so good systems and not so good organizational culture to a better one, but that's unlikely to happen actually. So what's typically going to happen if you have a poorly managed development organization and you are moving to the new world, you're going to get something similar just with AI. And this is something that we have seen many times, is that great organizations have no problems to transition to new technologies and new organizational structure. And poorly managed organizations struggle with anything they do. So I would say prerequisite. I mean, it's not a prerequisite to become great before you go into the future wave, right? But it's sort of an open question for a company. Do you want to be great? And to be great is not about adopting new tool like AI. It really is about creating great processes and allowing people to do the right thing and supporting them and creating, continuously optimizing and improving internal processes. But if we're talking about continuous delivery, there is a very clear definition of continuous delivery. Very few companies actually achieve that. But then they say, okay, so instead of fixing my problems, right, and fixing the continuous integration build and delivery automation and self-service from the platform, I will go and adopt AI. Like that's going to solve my problems. So that's where I'm saying it's not going to solve your problems. It's going to probably increase your problems, right? Because it's a more powerful tool in a poorly managed environment will likely make your problems worse.
Yeah, and kind of new ways of working and new dependencies that needs to be included as well. So if you've got old dependencies that are not useful and not usable, then it's just going to add pain. Okay. So moving on then. So I think, I guess another question then is what one project might be to actually run a pilot project, a pioneer project, to actually find out where those issues are within the current business. But I guess in that case, how would you run a POC? Like, what's the best way of kind of running a project? Should you do something waterfall like, or should you phase it? Like, and how do you run multiple at the same time as well? I think that's interesting because I think that many AI projects are kind of, they're more research centric. There's a fairly high chance that they won't quite be good enough for what you need them to do, and which is a risk of failure. So is the solution to that to run 10 of these projects all at the same time, or are you just gonna
It's I don't think there is a clear answer in this for this question. I think if I would be managing, many times when we manage POCs, it is about running multiple projects, right? It's not about one single project running for 2 or 3 months and then at the end figuring out it works or it doesn't. Because that's just basically bad idea, because you overcommit to a single idea and you already spent 2 months investing in it, so you have this sort of commitment and sunk cost fallacy, right? So you're really committed to that thing. It's really bad idea. It really is about reducing cost of experimentation and really running lots and lots of different POCs. And for example, in many companies, it takes weeks to provision hardware, right? Even in the world of public clouds, right? It still takes weeks to provision VM in a public cloud, which is crazy, right? In this environment, it's not a POC. It's because it takes you weeks to do something. It means that you cannot do a lot of it in sequence. So I think you do need to run a lot of POCs. For each POC, you need to have some sort of an assumption that you are testing, some sort of business assumption. Does it reduce cost? Does it increase revenue somehow? Does it help people to do better things? Like what's the hypothesis that you are testing? You're not just installing tools, to play with them. So what I do strongly recommend is not to run those POCs within existing teams that are under pressure of delivering features to existing products, which is often happening, because the current products and the deadlines to customers will always win, right? So the innovation will always be pushed out unless it's done under some sort of underground innovation by some of the managers. So at the end, you need to have independent team that is free to do the experimentation, that they have the tools and freedom to do whatever they like. The size of the POC is very limited, hopefully just days or maybe weeks. And it doesn't really create the real value because it's just a POC. It needs to be thrown away and rebuilt in most cases. The main goal for the POC is to answer one question. Is there a business case to continue working on it? And if yes, then you need to build the next stage, which is MVP, which is a real system. So the main answer is that it has to be done with a lot of freedom in an independent environment, without the pressure of delivery to production, and at minimum cost, at minimum time. This way you can do a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. So when you say build the business case, then do you mean from a technical perspective, as in the feasibility of doing something, or do you actually mean from a product perspective as well?
Both. I think it's very important to understand that, the fact feasibility is the fact that we can actually do it. But what's the point? Like, you have to answer this question. I think a lot of engineers tend to ignore this question. Like, is it going to save the money or is it going to create new money? If you cannot answer this question, there is no point in even running a POC, because what's the good result then? The fact that we can build a rocket doesn't mean we should.
Yeah. So I guess that becomes the ultimate metric then. It's like how and that's how you decide which POCs to take forward. It's based upon those business cases. So I guess what that means is that so engineering, and most of the listeners and watchers are engineers of some kind. They will need to work in a team that consists of business people as well, because it's very likely that they're not going to know those numbers. They're not going to know the market, the sales, how it could affect their products and things like that. So I guess, does that mean that teams should be and become very cross-functional, like from business to technical?
This is a good question, because this is the heart of the problem that I'm solving in the last 10 years as consultant, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's the engineers tend to talk in terms of technology. This is a superior technology, which is meaningless, really. I mean, it's important. It's important for engineers that you can do things in a better way, but no executive will ever push engineering team to adopt Kubernetes. It's just because they don't care, because there is no clear value for the business in using things like Kubernetes. And
Mm-hmm.
AI is the same thing. Do you really need ML? Do you really need Gen AI? Do you really need, I don't know, whatever the piece of technology that we are installing? It's a really big problem for engineering teams to express their needs and ask for budgets and approval to actually go for a large and innovative project without presenting a clear business case, which actually resonates with the executives. Do you need to include business people? I mean, you have to have a business angle in every business case. Without that, it will just never be accepted. And I'm sure every one of your listeners who went through this kind of asking for budget from the managers, and the manager said no, despite the fact that it was an amazing piece of technology. The managers are like, yeah, but the old monolithic waterfall thing still works. So why do we need to replace it? Why do we need to spend all this time and effort to build something new if the old one is still working? So it's absolutely essential for the engineering teams to bring a business case. It is also very important for the executives to understand the technology and how technology can help to build their business. Because the majority of larger enterprises today, they're effectively IT companies. So an executive that doesn't understand technology and its impact on the business is also making a mistake, which is sort of the other side of the same coin, right? So that's what we as a consultants coming in the middle, we on one side see engineers really upset that the best technology is not accepted. And on the other side, the executives that don't understand the technology and pushing for effectively money numbers, like financial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a massive disconnect in the middle, and organizations that can bridge this disconnect, they will have a clear way to go forward with a business case and with the best technology.
Yeah. Okay. That resonates. I think that's definitely a gap in my knowledge. I'd love to learn more about building the business side of the business case, because I think it's easy to say, but it's actually quite hard to do, especially when you're not an expert in the space that you need to build the business case for. Like, for example, there's several technologies now that fundamentally change how things are done, and so it ends up being like, well, the business case is the opportunities are infinite. Like, so take like a pretty generic example is like with AI agents, for example. And if you can persuade people that you can replace certain functions, entire functions within a business with automated agents, that's kind of the current trend. And the business case there is a huge amount of saving and a huge efficiency gain. And so the business case is kind of obvious. And so then I think it then becomes more of a technical challenge. And that's where the feasibility study is really important, because once you've done that, you'll find that actually it's a lot harder than we said it was. We can't do this, we can't do that, it doesn't work very well, etc., etc. So no, I think that's a really important aspect.
I think what you're saying is very, very important point. Right? This is exactly how engineers are thinking. There's a new piece of technology, and the business value is obvious because we are going to effectively fire half of the customer service team, right? But are we? Like, it's not clear. It has to be tested, right? If we introduce this Gen AI chatbot or something like that, is it really going to create this result of reducing your size of your support team by half? It could be, but how do you know? Like, if you're installing a new piece of technology, you're going to test if it does the work that you expect it to do. But in terms of business value, you're just saying it's obviously going to do that work. How do you know? You have to test it, right? You have to actually put this tool inside the actual support team to see how much value it creates and also how it affects their work. Because let's say you have a call center and people are calling. Are they calling because they cannot do something on your website or because they want human contact? Because if they want human contact by reducing your human interaction with your customers, you actually may have the opposite effect on your business. You have to test this. Like if you are in the product space, you know that those things you cannot just randomly say, I'll change the color of the shoe from blue to red and I'll sell more shoes. You have to test it.
Yeah, but exactly. But now what you're saying is that to build the business case to get the budget, you need to demonstrate that there is business value. But now we have to test it in order to prove that there's business value, but you need the budget in order to do that. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem here.
It always is. Then you always have an assumption, like this is scientific method. You say, I think I can do this. If I can do this, would we invest in it? Yes. Then how much does it cost you to run a POC to test that it is feasible and it actually does what it promised to do? But there are two questions to answer, right? One is it feasible? And second, is it doing what it promised to do? And I think engineers tend to ignore the second question. Is it actually bringing the actual business value? Because often they don't even know what the business value is, or the assumption is too broad or too, like you say, it reduces the team by half. It never does. In my experience, it never does. There's always this, like, if we buy this platform, it will reduce the cost by half. There is this principle called Jevons paradox, which means once something becomes easier to do, the actual spend on it becomes higher because it's easier to do, we do more of it. This is 100% what happened with public cloud. Like people said, we will go to public cloud, and in the public cloud, the cost of IT will be half of infrastructure. In reality, it doubled and tripled and went 10 times bigger. Because now every developer provisions 10 VMs to run test environments.
And I think that perfectly highlights the difficulty in predicting the business value. And I think actually going back to what you said before about the leaders also need to have an understanding of the underlying technology so that they can also appreciate that you can't go from zero to, perfect result in a very short space of time. It's tiny steps, and it's iteration of innovation as opposed to,
The biggest mistake the leaders do is going to engineering teams and saying, Gartner told us or somebody told us that AI is amazing, go and do AI and give me in 2 months, give me a prediction or plan how to transition to AI. This is absolutely terrible way of doing things. This is very waterfall. This is wrong way to adopt new technologies. It has to be done through experimentation and small experiments, and not through upfront planning, because it's impossible to plan. This kind of things, you can guess what's going to happen, but you have to test your assumptions.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all Gartner's fault. I think that's what you're saying.
It is Gartner's fault.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's start wrapping up a little bit. So I think we've touched on some really great topics there. Do you think that transformation is going to change in the future? Do you think that there is a potential that technology will change the game? I guess will technology continue to cause transformation in the future, or is this something that we can get to grips with now?
So the next book is actually called Waves of Innovation. So now there will be always the next wave. I think if you look, when I started my computer science degree, it was C, right? So writing code in C, it's not just a different programming language. It's entirely different paradigm of working with computers, right? And today you can tell a co-pilot to write code for you in some random language you don't even understand. So it's all about building up on the previous layers of abstraction. So I really believe that AI is just next layer of abstraction, right? So we will learn how to work with it. It will allow us to build even bigger things that we can't imagine today. And then there will be a next wave of innovation. I really don't know how. When I was writing the previous book about 5-6 years ago, we had this maturity matrix, and cloud native was the current wave of innovation. And I had the next column in the maturity matrix. And the next column was really, you look into it, there is absolutely nothing about AI in it, just 5 years ago. So I really had no idea.
And are those waves somewhat predictable? Do they happen on like in a cyclic, like are they cyclic, or is it possible to say that you need to sort of innovate for the next X years and then reset and then innovate again, or is it more fluid than that?
I really think that it's very easy to predict in hindsight. It's very difficult.
He says to all of the data scientists listening to the video.
There is a solution for that. I really think it's not about guessing what's the next wave and investing it. It's about always being prepared. And there is an excellent model, which is 3 horizons. You always need to spend most of your time on horizon 1, the products that you are building now and bringing your value to your customers immediately now. There is horizon 3, which is long-term innovative research. And then there is in the middle introduction of disruptive big projects like cloud native or AI native transformation or introduction of entirely new product line. So these 3 horizons, if you're consistently investing in horizon 3, you will never be surprised by the next wave, because AI is not a surprise. I mean, you are doing it for 10 years or more, right? So how is it a surprise?
Yeah.
So whoever was investing in it and ready for it, they have no problem to adopt these technologies. And by the way, AI native or AI in general is still very early. I don't think this is like whoever is starting it now is still ahead of everyone else almost. Yeah, so it's not really about it really is about always investing in new ideas, so you're never surprised.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I think we've come to time now. I'd like to thank you so much for spending the time with me today. If anybody's got any questions, then you can reach out to me or Pinny. Pinny's website is re-sync.com. If you just search for that, you'll find Pinny's details, and mine as well. Make sure you check out Pinny's new book when it comes out. That's so good question. Have you any prediction for when it's going to come out yet?
So what we're going to do is, by the time this webinar is released, we will likely have a promo ebook that we can share with just high-level ideas. The book itself will likely come out after summer, around September, October. So you can register on our website to our newsletter, and we will let you know when the book is out, and hopefully you will hear and see it everywhere.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Penny. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, awesome.